So everybody relaxed for a short while, and then of course within 2 weeks, reality of Parliament came along, and now of course we had a problem. You were already born, Laura was going to be now on her own, I was going to be in London. So I don't know, no, you wouldn't recall, but we stayed with Myrddin, who was a policeman in London. We stayed with him for 3 weeks, because I was just an ordinary person. I was only on £1,200 a year, working for the gas board. And now suddenly I became a member of Parliament. The salary went up to 4,000, but at the time I had nothing. I couldn't suddenly decide, oh, I'll get a flat or whatever. It's heck, what I'm going to do here? How am I going to cope? I'd have to stay in London, Laura would have to stay in Cardiff. It was problem times. And when Parliament was prorogued for the summer recess, as it always is, first of all, when we went to Parliament, 3 busloads came from Carmarthen for 2 days. They had booked themselves into hotels, and they were taken around the House of Commons, and there were pictures of those somewhere in my records. And then Parliament closes for the summer recess type of thing, or holiday time. We hadn't thought of booking a holiday, but Laura's auntie, from her father's side, they had a caravan in Pendine. So we spent 2 weeks in Pendine, in their caravan. This is a member of Parliament now, right? Okay, no Lanzarote or the Scilly Isles or the Seychelles or anything like that. Caravan in Pendine, and then for the final week of the 3 weeks, we went to Amroth, to the very nice park they have there in Amroth. And after that, then it was down to serious business, wasn't it? Being a member of Parliament, coping with a young family. Very soon afterwards, Indig was born, and which complicated issues for Laura, because it's not easy. It's not easy when you're away from home 4 or 5 days a week and ringing up, asking how are things at 10 o'clock at night when she might have had a heck of a day with her 2 children, and there I am in the best club in town. You know?
And what was your first impression of Parliament? And the people in it?
Well, I remember sitting down and wondering, my God, this is where all the great Welsh MPs have been. Lloyd George has been here, and all sorts of other people. And I thought back, because I was my degree was in history, and economics and economic history and all that went through my mind. So I was impressed with that, but the biggest shock I had was, because I thought, you see, party politics was serious. I really didn't think that. I never thought that you got on with your Tories. You don't get on with them, right? How silly was I? Harold Wilson had lost the election, biggest shock of his life, never expected to lose. No one ever thought Edward Heath would have been Prime Minister. All the opinion polls showed that Wilson was going to walk it. Whatever went wrong, I don't know, but something went wrong, and he lost by 27 or something. In comes the Prime Minister, sits down, and in comes Harold. What do you think the first thing he did? He winked at Edward Heath. That's the first thing he did. And I thought to myself, hang on a minute. Have I been slogging my guts out here in Carmarthen for 4 years for these two to be mates? But I quickly got into the game, didn't I? It's a club. It's a club where you have to learn to live by the rules of the club. And I suspect at the end of the day, if you don't play it by those rules, it can be quite a nasty place. If you carried on your politicking day in, day out in Parliament. So in Parliament, you would make a nasty speech in the chamber, then lunchtime, evening time, you're drinking and socialising together. You know, and we used to go, the Welsh Labour group of MPs, to where the Tories drank, only because it was better class. You know, the Welsh-speaking group of MPs were not beer drinkers, you see. You know, we were the plebs of the Labour Party. You know, the Rhondda Valley boys and all those valley people. You know, we were the wine drinkers, the Scotch drinkers, the brandy drinkers, and in my case, vintage port. I really took a liking to vintage port, and that was where you get it most. So we would meet there every night. You know, Cledwyn Hughes, Luston, Will Edwards, Tom Ellis, myself, sometimes Carwyn Roderick, although Carwyn was more of a traditional valley man really. We would meet there every night, compare notes, crack some jokes, and in relation to Tom Ellis and myself, more than anybody, listening to some stories from Tom about when he was a mining colliery manager in Wrexham, and more particularly from Luston and Cledwyn Hughes about events and stories and things like that. You know, the stories, I will only have to put them in my book, but I can relay one or two to you. One of them was, at one time there were 6 MPs who would leave on a Sunday in the 50s from Chester, railway station, Shrewsbury or Chester, wherever it was. They'd come from, the MP, Gwynoro Roberts, Myrddin, Idwal Jones, he was Wrexham, Tom, T.W. Jones, his brother from Myrddin, 2 or 3 others, forget their names now, and they would get to Sussex Gardens, which is where I stayed as well. All the Welsh MPs, Labour MPs, in those days stayed in Sussex Gardens, if you didn't have your own flat, or if you didn't have an arrangement of that kind. I used to stay in the White House, it was called, run by a Mr. and Mrs. Roderick from Mr. Gunlice Way, and that's where Luston, myself and Will Edwards stayed for the 4.5 years, more or less. And but these guys used to come down in the 50s because they couldn't come on a Monday because the train journey was too long. And they would stop somewhere before going for the night to retire for a drink. And these, now mind, are strictly non-conformist, chapel-going guys. Cledwyn, the son of a minister, a preacher as well in his time, and Idwal and T.W., similar mode beacons of non-conformity. So they, as usual, they didn't drink much, but they would have a half each or something before retiring. Well, they ordered a drink for each other, and T.W. Jones went to the toilet. When he came back, he noticed that 4 women had arrived in where they were, and they were from his constituency. Problem for T.W. now. So in front of them all, he said, "Excuse me, Cledwyn," he said, "is this drink alcoholic?" Just to show that he didn't drink alcohol. See. These guys, Cledwyn was a source of great fun, tremendous fun. And when he was in Hoyle, he would break out into sermons. And sometimes we'd go to the toilet together to relieve ourselves. And the toilets in the House of Commons near where we were massive. You know, like some you'd have in Paddington Station in the old days, big ones. You know, noise would reverberate through them. And he'd look around, and if there was no one there, he'd break out into a hymn, Pwy Wilaf, O Edom and Dod, and Haradach, Athekach, and the whole noise would, the building would shake in there, They were very great times, and we plotted there as well, you see, didn't we? We plotted our Welsh campaigns, we plotted our devolution campaign, we plotted how to counteract George and Napsy and Kinnock, that's where we planned it. And, it It wasn't, we didn't survive by accident. We survived because we were ahead of the game. You know, we were always ahead of the game. And the issues of the time were the Common Market, see, the Industrial Relations Act, the leftward trend of Labour. Tony Benn was now beginning to change his views, because there he was in the 60s in Wilson's government, the white heat of the technological revolution, and he made Benn his technology minister. Benn was big on Europe. Now Labour was in opposition. Benn became anti-Europe, very, very strong. So, and the Labour Party tended to drift leftwards slowly, and the unions gathered more power. And you know, many of us were warning Wilson. There's no need to warn him. I'm sure he saw it happening himself. And there were struggles then for leadership positions, and there were elections every year. And in about 1972, Roy Jenkins became deputy leader. Now the clash now became, there it was, wasn't it? There was the Jenkinsites, about 100 of them. There was the left-wing Labour Party, about 100 of them. In the middle then were various groupings of people who supported Callaghan, who supported Tony Coslin. But the two armies were now establishing themselves, okay? And in Wales, two armies were now on devolution and the language, different issues. But the Welsh language people and the devolutionists in the Labour Party in Wales were also in the Jenkins camp, not in the left camp. So we had wider issues to fight, okay? And one of the issues, of course, was the reform of local government in Wales, which was a big act, that cutting down, getting rid of the local authorities, only 8 county councils and things like that. And that was the chance we had to put forward an amendment to the reform of local government in Wales to create an overarching elected council for Wales. They didn't see it coming, you see. They didn't see it coming. So I pushed a motion being you get people to support it, to get then go on the order paper of the House of Commons to support an elected council for Wales as part of the reform of local government in Wales. And it got 16 signatories, half the Welsh Labour group of MPs. So the Labour group was now seriously divided, okay? And on top of that, I leaked to the Western Mail a meeting that had been held for a private vote amongst us all about the issue, because they weren't giving up. And that's the only time I ever remember Jim Callaghan coming to a meeting of the Welsh Labour group of MPs, in my period there, was to argue against devolution. Some of the books that have been written in Wales about that period is so wrong. Even when Callaghan was Prime Minister, he never wanted devolution, but he had to accept the tide. But he went along with it reluctantly. So reluctantly, he only made one speech in favour of devolution during the Welsh referendum. Only one. This was his government. And when he lost the referendum, I know I'm jumping ahead here, when he lost the referendum, it was the end of his government. The government collapsed. He needed that referendum to survive. But his heart wasn't in it. He never was. George Thomas's heart wasn't in it. So I leaked these names. Big inquiry. But they could never prove, you see, because I had good contacts in the Western Mail, as in HTV and BBC Cymru and all, Radio Cymru, the whole lot, you know, who were devolutionists themselves. So, you know, I was manna from heaven for them, wasn't I? You know, I could feed them all the stories in creation, and they would never say in a month of Sundays that it was me. The Welsh Labour group of MPs knew it was me. You know, nobody else would have had the nous to do it. Nobody else had the contacts. Nobody else had the contacts from when he was research and public relations officer. Nobody else had the contact because I was always on radio and television in Wales. You know, hundreds of times a year. They knew who'd done the damage. I just expressed surprise. I have no idea. How, I don't know, they must have guessed the names I was on about. When asked to explain what was my role, I said, look, it's obvious. They can know now. George, they know that you're against it. Kenneth Neal, they know you're against it. Jim Cannon, they know you're against it. They know I'm for it. They know Pendine is for it. Liston Morgan is for it. It's not great science that the papers knew these names. You know, just obvious detective work. But they didn't like me. You know, that was the finish for me with the Welsh Labour Group and MPs.